Good day, everybody. Welcome to Mind Prosperity. So great to have you guys here. I'm so excited today with this interview that I have with a guy called Nicholas Neeves, who wrote a book on letters to her, and that is a letter from the masculine to the feminine. And we're going to speak a lot about the masculine and the feminine energies. I hope you enjoy the interview. I want to remind you to subscribe to this video and send it around because many people should read this book. Enjoy the interview. I just want to say this before I introduce our guest. We are spirit, we are soul, and we are body. And the three work holistically together. And today we're going to speak about the masculine and the feminine. It's a very hot topic for me as well at the moment. And today I have Nicholas Neeves with me. It's not the first time that he's with us. It's the second time, when he recently wrote a book called Letters to Her, From a Man's Heart to a Woman's. And Nicholas is going to speak to us a bit about that today. Nicholas, welcome. It's so great to have you with us.
Oh man, so good to be here again with you. Like I say, man, you're looking like you're in your masculine center there, looking good and solid and grounded. I can see that. I can see that in your energy. And this is what our viewers want to maybe take away from today is just understanding this lens of masculine and feminine and how we can really become more aware of it so we can understand each other better and we can look into each other from a whole new perspective and be there in a more present way and a more complementary way. So when I look at you, I can see, man, you're looking solid and centered. I appreciate that because it gives me then trust that the interview is going to go well because I can feel your leadership in this moment, right? I can feel you in your masculine energy. So it's feeling supportive of me right now. So thank you, man. Thanks for having me on the show again.
Well, that's a very big compliment, and I really appreciate it. I think a lot of people, when we speak about, God created them male and female, or male or female, we just think about this idea of like biologically, but we don't think about this whole idea of like masculine is actually a type of energy, and feminine is actually a type of energy. And like you just said, I can feel a certain energy when I'm around a person. But then, before we get to your book, Letters to Her, I want to ask this question because masculine is not just a person is not just masculine or feminine. As I understand it, a person can be what they call in your toxic masculine or in your wounded masculine. And then there's kind of like this idea of a healthy masculine. Now, before we get to the feminine, can you just maybe quickly explain what does it mean to be either healthy or toxic or wounded in your masculine?
Well, I think firstly, thanks for laying that platform around the fact that this is not a gender-based or biological sort of framework to look through. Okay, it's really a language. It's a state that people can find themselves in that they can say is either masculine or feminine because it's got a definition. And the masculine definition is one of, let's say, a picture frame, right? So the picture frame is a frame because it has a certain context of structure. It has four sides. It's got a certain texture, a certain color. In other words, it's very obvious and it's very clearly marked. There it is. And that's the frame. And I can look at that frame and I can understand it because it's very clear. It's very logical. It provides me with data and information. There it is, right? There's the frame. Now, the minute we add a beautiful picture into that frame, let's say, right, it's a piece of art that's got certain colors and certain images, we can look at that picture inside the frame and not quite know what it's all about, right? But it's an expression. It's a paintbrush that had flow and freedom, and there's colors and there's layers and there's depth, and we can stare at that picture for a long time, but we can only stare at that picture and admire that as that feminine aspect because the frame is there, right? So if we don't have that frame, then we can't put that feminine energy into that and admire the feminine, right? It might just be rolled up on some table somewhere as a piece of canvas. It hasn't been framed properly on the wall. So I like that analogy for the masculine and the feminine because it helps describe also the complementary nature of the two energies and how they can serve each other. This doesn't mean to say that at times women can't be the ones who have that frame, certainly at work and when they've got to go and get their bread and butter and get out there into the real world and travel and do what they've got to do. They need to have that frame of a certain time a certain space and energy, etc., that they have to enter into. But the key is for anybody to understand that each one of us has a specific essence. In other words, a certain signature of one of these energies. I have more of a masculine signature energy. I am a man, gender-wise, but my baseline energy is one of masculinity. My work is very feminine though, because it's very nourishing and nurturing in the counseling practice. And so I enter into a very nourishing space with people. But within that, you see, is appointments, right? And a certain structure in my day. So my masculine and feminine complement each other quite nicely there, because I show up from 9 to 10 and 11 to 12. But in the session, I'm in my feminine energy there. So I may have jumped the gun with your question. They're just jumping into the feminine there as well. But I thought maybe sharing it like that, because you can't separate the two. You can't discuss the masculine without also then bringing in the feminine, because we know feminine because we know masculine and vice versa. So they are very complementary. And the key takeaway here for our viewers is just to understand that at any one time, I would want my client to get to the place of choice as to what energy they need to switch on in any given moment, right?
That's very good.
Yeah, so because you're in the leadership role here, this is your interview, you embodying more of the frame. You gave me the frame of the time, the structure, you sent me the link, etc., and I've entered into your frame happily. And that's just the nuance in the dance right now. And I'm providing the paintbrush on the canvas, so to speak, right? So even between two men, we can dance with the masculine and feminine. And what's beautiful is that when we understand it and we respect it, I can then say to you, man, I've got your back. I appreciate you. Thank you. You're looking good. You're looking solid. You're looking centered. And I can compliment your masculine without my masculine feeling threatened by you, or that I have to protect myself or get defensive. I feel safe with you because you provided a great frame. Maybe at some point I provide you with that frame, and then you feel safe in my energy, right? So this is just the nature of these things. They're energies. Any given moment in your day, you can switch between them. And again, it's about the awareness of them so that you can choose which energy to be in any given time.
I think a lot of things, or something that might happen a lot today is, because of the rise of the feminist movement, there's kind of like this rise of now a masculine movement, but a lot of times it gets to a place where it becomes toxic, where a person where a man wants to be kind of like in his masculine, but this masculine becomes toxic. Now, I don't want to speak about what I think the toxic masculine is. I want you to explain, when does the masculine become, or the feminine? We can speak about both if you're more comfortable with that. When does the masculine and the feminine become toxic and not healthy?
Yeah, well, when it starts to lose that frame, right? So in other words, a frame is very clear boundaries, and I know what size that frame is. So I know what I want. I'm clear about what I want, and so that gives you the confidence to know who I am and what I'm presenting. So the frame is the healthy version of the masculine, right? So in other words, it would be, say, for example, let's say in a dating sense, right? Like, I want to meet you at the Mug and Bean at 9 o'clock for a cup of coffee because I'd like to have a date with you because I'm interested in you.
And that's the masculine.
Right? That's very healthy masculine energy, right? It's clear. She knows what she's in for and she can say yes or no, right? Unhealthy masculinity is, yeah, sure, we can meet. When do you want to meet? Right? Yeah, let's meet for a coffee. That's fine. And then I'm at the coffee date with you and I'm not very clear and she doesn't really know what I'm doing there. I don't really share very openly and honestly. And then she walks away and she's like, well, is this going to be a friend? Was that a date? Or, in other words, there's a lack of clarity there as a practical example. Okay, so I don't like the word toxic. I prefer using the word collapsed. Okay, so in other words, if you picture a beautiful lighthouse, and that lighthouse is very strong and firm, and it can take the waves crashing down on it. That strong, healthy masculinity, it can survive any tsunami, let's say, okay? But if there's a tsunami, which would be the feminine energy, and that lighthouse collapses, that's a collapsed toxic masculinity, right? Like it cannot hold the frame for the ocean, so to speak. And that's often due to more childhood sort of issues there. So I like the word collapsed as well because it means that the man has collapsed into the boy. generally. And you'll generally find that someone who's in toxic masculinity is operating from a childhood wound in manipulation, control, power struggles, and that will come across as passive aggressive behavior. It'll come across as gaslighting, etc., etc. And that's how the woman will experience it, because the man isn't confident enough as a man. He is still in that little boy energy. So he's collapsed into himself. So his sense of self is collapsed. He has a low sense of self. And so that would be the toxic version, where the man has to try and control or manipulate to get his needs met. He's not proud of his needs and confident just to say, hey, I like you. Let's go out Friday at 8 o'clock on a date. And, you know, if you play your cards right, you might get lucky tonight, right? That's what's on offer here, right? I'm not going to pretend to be your friend and be nice to you and buy you flowers. It's like, and in a business sense, that's knowing your facts and your data and being very clear with that. And this is what I want. This is the outcome. This is the goal. These are the A, B's, and C's. In other words, clarity and that confidence is a strong masculinity. The collapsed or toxic masculinity is when it's confused, it's doubtful, it's shame, it's fear, it's anxiety, which are very natural things. And I haven't met a man who hasn't got a collapsed part of his masculinity. But yeah, I mean, you can get a spectrum of toxicity, right? I mean, you can really get to that side of things where men can be almost psychopathic in their masculinity, meaning they're there as predators and they're there just to take what they want without any empathy. And so that's very dangerous when that type of masculinity is around. Yeah.
I want to use an example, and I want to hear what you think about this example. So say, for instance, the man takes the girl out on a date. He said to her, listen, I want to go out on a date. She said yes. Now they go, say, for instance, to this coffee shop. But the man can read that the girl doesn't really like this coffee shop. The collapsed masculine, as I understand you correctly, I want to hear what you think about this. The collapsed masculine will be, are you okay? Are you enjoying yourself? Do you want to go somewhere else? The healthy masculine can read it and say, you know what, let's ditch this place and let's go somewhere else. Am I correct if I say that?
Yeah, that's a very fine line. I mean, in your collapsed example there, what was good about that is that he did open up a conversation, and he was aware of it, right? So that's healthy. I think when a man is aware of the environment, he's sensitive to her and he's sensitive to the environment. That's the healthy version for sure. And yes, it's that leadership, right? It is saying, making statements of, you know, this place has got a strange vibe. Let's go to the other place just down the road here, rather. Come along with me. You know, it's always an invitation for her to join him in a new place and a new adventure, whatever it is. Is particularly, yes, if he feels that she wasn't really enjoying the space or she was unsettled or whatever, he can even just check in with her and just say, hey man, is everything okay? I'm just, you know, you seem a little nervous at the moment. Are you comfortable? What's wrong? And then she can say, oh, well, I don't quite like this space because I've had a bad experience here. No problem. Let's leave the table. Let's go down the road and have a coffee down there rather, you know. So reading the room is a sign of a good, strong masculine frame. Attuned too much to her needs and what she's after and trying to please her and being nice to her would certainly be more of the toxic or collapsed version, because what he's looking there for is more validation from her, asking her to lead, asking her to make him okay, versus him entering into the moment and making it an adventure and a memorable date, regardless of whether she's going to be okay with it or not. So he's able to play with it and suggest some options, but being sensitive at the same time. Yeah, so there's a number of components there. It was a good question.
I want to ask another one. I used to tell people, and I'm not necessarily saying I believe this anymore. After I've started to, study about the masculine and the feminine, but I used to tell people, like, especially women, like, your man cannot read you. You have to communicate with him. You have to tell him. And now I'm kind of like in the space of, does the healthy masculine maybe have to have this kind of like an ability to read the feminine without her necessarily always communicating it, meaning, I can read you not comfortable here, I can see you not happy here, or I can see you like this. Yeah, I hope you
Yeah.
understand what I'm asking.
Yeah. It's like ninja stuff, man. It's look, it's a big ask. Women, and please, I'm here for any criticism or complaint in what I'm about to say, but women are very multi-layered, and they have a depth of feeling that us men can't always comprehend, and nor can they very often. Like, a lot goes on in a woman's brain. Their brains are wired very differently to us. They go more side to side with their connections. We go front to back more, meaning we're logical. We change gears from first to second to third to fourth gear. They're not into that at all. They're more like automatic cars that just go with the flow, right? So there's a lot happening for them in any given moment. But the woman would want to feel that the man can feel them in that moment, meaning he doesn't have to change or fix me, but can he be with me in what I'm feeling right now? So back to your example, if she's feeling uncomfortable at the coffee shop, can he, through his logical brain, pick up through my body language, not some ninja ESP telepathy special skill, just plain body language and her shift in her energy? Can he just be aware that she has shifted? She's gone within herself a little bit. Her energy's gone down. Just check in with her and just say, hey, I've noticed this. Is everything okay with you? That's good management of that sort of moment in time, right? And then when he asks her, are you comfortable? She might then say, no, I'm feeling quite anxious. And then, he can say, well, that's a real understandable feeling right now because this place is a bit weird. Come, let's get out of here. And then when he's at the next coffee shop, you can say, hey, how are you feeling there? Tell me about the anxiety. What do you mean by anxiety? What happened for you? I'd like to know. I'm curious, And then you can go deeper into the feeling with her and validate it and be there for her in that. But reading minds and knowing exactly what's what, it's very difficult, and because a man's brain is scanning the horizon for those saber-tooths and those other warring tribes that are going to come and cause cuck with our families. So we're always on the lookout to protect our women. We're not really in the heart space or that intuitive space. But a man who's in his strong masculine understands body language. He can understand tones of voice in her communication. So he can be aware of interest in her as well. If he's not sure when to make the move or not make the move or whatever, should I go for the kiss or not go for the... A sensitive man is a strong man. He's the man who can understand the body language and go for it because you have confidence because he's picked up that the time is right, and that's certainly a healthy masculinity. The toxic masculinity would be he's too worried about the impression he's making. He's too worried whether she likes him or not to even consider what's happening for her because it's all about him, basically, because he's trying to prove himself or get validation because he's stuck in his own collapsed self-identity, right? He needs her to affirm that, so he loses presence. So a toxic man is a man who would perhaps be lacking presence. We can define it a bit like that too.
So if I understand you correctly, if we speak about the collapsed or the toxic, this is a person who will, I'm using my car, I'm using my clothes, I'm using my money, I'm using my looks to impress you, but I don't really want to connect to you emotionally because there are too many emotional wounds.
Yeah. And look, if a woman was doing that also, that would also be toxic, right? So like anybody who does that, right? So, but through the lens of masculinity, yes, he would be using those masculine archetypes of car and money and things like that to try and inflate himself, to fluff his feathers, so to speak, to be impressive, charming, etc. Now, the interesting thing is if that's what he's doing, he may have found a woman who's got her toxic feminine going on, who needs to be impressed, who needs those type of things to feel like a princess. So she falls for it, right?
Mm.
And then now they both think they're in love, but they both actually just playing into each other's toxic elements. And then 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, if one of them starts to grow or evolve, it becomes an issue because they started off in a toxic sort of way. So healthy versions of this also, remember, are the ability to be authentic and vulnerable, right? So I've got a dad car, man. I've got like 3 girls. I'm a single dad with 3 girls. I drive an old Honda, man, and this thing is like full of my kids' shit half the time, man. You know, so if I take a girl out, I firstly haven't had the time to always go wash my car. Secondly, I don't always have the money to pay for a full-on valet service. Like when I meet the girl, I'm going to say to her, listen, man, I'm a single dad. You're about to get into a dad car. So, you know, maybe just excuse the extra school clothes or school books or whatever. But let's go for that ice cream, man. Come jump in, you know? And if she's like, oh, I don't drive in a car like this, where's your BMW? Then it's like, well, this is a Honda, babe. You either get in or the date's over. Sorry. Because this ain't no BMW. But I see there's a guy down there who's driving a BMW. Why don't you go and like hit on him? Because I'm not your guy then, you know?
So that's your healthy masculine that can do that.
Correct, because I'm acknowledging the place in life that I'm at and I'm okay with it. I'm confident with it. Like, this is my life and I don't have to inflate it or impress you or lie to you, right? I mean, this is just where I'm at, but I've got clear boundaries. So if you don't like it, I'm cool with that. Go find something else. But this is it, you know. So even like on dating apps, a lot of guys lie on dating apps. You know, they stick pictures up that are like 10 years old when they were still looking good with some abs and stuff. And you know, and it's like some random picture of them fishing on some rock or mountain 50 meters away from the camera. It's like, come on, guys, man, like be proud of yourselves, man. You know, women, when you look at very attractive women, it's interesting who go out with a lot of these guys that you see, a lot of them aren't good looking men, right? They're not necessarily good looking guys, but they've got very healthy frames. In other words, they know how to put the woman in her place and how to treat her and keep her feeling safe by being very clear of what they're doing in life and where they're going with no excuses, and they're not sorry for it. They're clear. It's like take it or leave it type of attitude, you know, and women appreciate that strength because then they realize that they can't just push him over. They can't just knock that lighthouse over and collapse it. You know, he's happy to lose her. You don't like this? Leave. Right. And he constantly does that in the relationship. He constantly takes the relationship, even after a couple of weeks or months, he takes the relationship to the edge where he knows what train he's on and where he's going. And he keeps pushing the relationship in that direction. And whether she likes it or not, he makes his decisions based on his mission, not based on whether she's liking him or not, or whether she's giving him sex or not. It's, I'm going in this direction. This is my God-given mission. You're either with me or you're not, you know, and that keeps the relationship in a lovely polarized energy where he's in his masculine and she can feel safe in her feminine, and that keeps the attraction going very nicely too. What happens for a lot of guys is that a lot of guys, after 3 months of dating, they'll then enter into her frame because now I've won her and I'll just follow her lead because let's do what makes her happy. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want any drama. So wherever she wants to go, let's go there. And if she wants to go there, then let her go there. And he becomes passive and he just lets her roam around and do what the heck she wants. And that woman, unfortunately, will lose attraction and respect very quickly for that guy. And unfortunately, it's what happens. You know, a lot of men's testosterone also drops after the 3rd month of dating because they've got the woman now, right? And the minute that their brain recognizes that this is now a permanent situation, they lose that chasing, hunting sort of energy and that like, you know, and they then just sit on the couch watching cricket all day, maybe.
I was watching, I don't know if you know who Tom Billow and Lisa Billow is.
Yes, that lady's got that shaved, she's got that like warrior hairstyle.
Yeah. So I kind of watch a lot of Tom Billow stuff, but him and her once did a thing about relationships, and this lady asked a question, and I want you to I want to hear what you think about this. So she said, you know, I have this man, I'm the provider, I'm the breadwinner. I have this man, you know, he's lying on the couch the whole day, watching TV, you know, and I want to leave him because, you know, but now I feel bad. She said, I feel bad for leaving him because now it's going to seem like I'm leaving him because he doesn't make money. And then Lisa said something very interesting. She said, you know what, when me and Tom got married, not only did I make more money than him, I actually gave money so that he can keep his business going. And Tom is like
Mm.
very, 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 very wealthy at the moment. Like he's very, very
Mm.
wealthy. And she said, like, not only did he not bring in money, it actually cost me money to have him in my life because I had to contribute to his business. And she said, but he was so hard working on his business. He was so clear on where he's going,
There you go.
and he was so focused. And then she said to the lady, "You don't want to leave the guy because he's not making money. You want to leave the guy because he's not making any effort." So I want to hear what you think about that.
Well, she's absolutely right, right? Women, don't want to invest in relationships for potential, right? They want to, sorry, they do invest for potential. It's not always about the money. If they see potential, in other words, the guy is showing up, he is making an effort, that's masculine energy,
Mm.
right? And you can't base a relationship on that specific metric of finance. Unless that again, it's toxic, right? Unless he's expecting that and he needs the mothering and he needs her to take care
Mm.
of him, and that's that little boy energy again, right? But yeah, and you'll find that in relationships very often. At times she might earn more, he might then not earn as much, and then that changes. They go through these cycles in their relationships. But there was clearly enough for this lady that you mentioned now in the relationship for her to still be very attracted to him.
Yeah.
Um, and there's different areas of our lives as well. And, I've also known men who haven't earned a lot of money. The woman earns a lot of money, but he's an incredible lover. And it's the best sex she's ever had. And so she keeps him around because he's taken her heart deeper than any other man, and that money can't buy.
Yeah. And he
Right.
was
So
still in his masculine.
he was still in his masculine because he was able to take her physically into a space that she's never been before, and she really appreciated that because that takes confidence, it takes presence, it takes a loving sort of spirit to be able to take a woman there. Yeah, and some relationships are where the woman is a little more in her masculine energy and the man's more of the stay-at-home dad, and he nourishes the children, he takes care of the kids, and that's fine.
Mm.
Remember, it's moment to moment. So as a general state in the relationship, if she's more in the masculine, he's more in the feminine, that works. That's supportive.
Mm.
If it's a case of she now wants to come home and he wants to just relax and surrender, and he wants to do the same thing, there's going to be no attraction. He's going to have to show up out of that nourishing stay-at-home daddy energy and start to seduce her and actually
Mm.
take her to a place in her heart that evening that makes her feel that she's safely in her feminine. So couples need to learn the nuances of these things and learn how to dance. It's when couples get stuck in energies and they get into bad habits, that toxic element comes out, and then they often then do blame their partner or project issues onto them. And so it's a lovely lens that, once again, I love talking about masculine and feminine because it's a really helpful navigation tool for individuals and couples to understand where they are. And it's also a language that people can use to help each other know where the other person is. Baby, I need a little bit more feminine energy. Or, like if you've had a long, busy day, it's nice to say to your partner, hey, baby, listen, man, I would just love a beautiful, soft kiss on a voice note, man. I miss your feminine energy. My
Mm.
day's been crazy.
Yeah.
And directly asking her for a blast of her feminine energy to nourish you. That's
Mm.
amazing. And
Mm.
women appreciate being asked that sort of thing. Women love being valuable in the relationship. And if they are shown how they can add value with their feminine energy, the relationship normally really blossoms.
I want to ask one more thing, based on that before we get to the book, because this is something that I've dealt with a lot, especially in the church world, where people have this idea that, if I feel good or if I feel attracted by the relationship, then this is kind of like a sign that the Lord is saying that this is my husband or this is my wife. Now, I disagree with it a lot, and I'm going to tell you why. Then I want to hear your thoughts, because I've seen a lot of times healthy tends to attract healthy, collapsed or toxic tends to attract collapsed or toxic. So a lot of times when you attract a person, and you can see this person has a lot of toxic tendencies, or this person has a lot of collapsed tendencies. Then instead of this is my perspective, instead of saying, this feels so good, this feels so right, maybe rather ask the question, is there maybe a wound in me that I'm now attracting a person that's not healthy, that I'm attracting a person that's a bit more toxic, or a bit more collapsed. I don't know if the question makes sense to you.
Not currently, but maybe keep asking and then it'll come to me. Yeah, maybe if you can just say it in different words there. Yeah.
Okay. To sum it up quickly, can a toxic person or a collapsed person attract a healthy person?
Yeah, because it might be an upfront physical chemistry to start with, right? But what normally happens in that dynamic is after 2 or 3 dates, because that secure person, that healthy person, is aware of boundaries and healthy relating type of dynamics, and they are aware of their needs and what they are going to be okay with or not okay with. If the unhealthy or insecure toxic person starts showing behavior that's not secure, the secure person only just leaves. They're just kind of like thanks but no thanks, because they're secure, they're full, they're abundant, they're not
Mm.
trying to cling to anybody. That normally happens. So I agree with you. Yes, I think people who are wounded do tend to attract those that are wounded, and then they can stay in toxic cycles, unfortunately, for many, many years, where they're trying to figure their stuff out. Yeah. Um, a lot of the secure relationships you don't see, man, because you don't see them. So a lot of the YouTube, social media stuff that you're looking at, what you're looking at there is basically a pool of the population that I would say is probably close to 75, 80% of the population that's insecure, because they're all trying to find themselves through podcasts and YouTube videos and shit like that. The secure people are happily at home with their families, man, having beautiful relationships, and they don't go on social media. Because
That's very good.
did you get what I mean, right? So dating apps as well, man. 90% of those people, unfortunately, are collapsed in some way because, why are you single? What's going on? Like, look, I've been on a dating app, and I mean, I lost my wife, but there are toxic elements to that too, because that's trauma. When you lose someone, you know, so why are you single with 3 girls, right? Like, what's going
Yeah.
on there? So I recognize I've got collapsed components to myself. Absolutely. Yeah, man, it's an interesting
No.
subject, and it's not always easy to navigate through that. But that's why we do the coaching. It's why we write the books and
Yeah.
stuff, to try and educate. Yeah.
Yeah, but one thing that you just said that's so important to me. This is what I always tell people. No person in the world is 100% healthy and 100% sorted out. The problem comes in when a person cannot acknowledge it, or the problem comes in when a person is not self-aware. So if you kind of like, because you get and I've seen a lot of people
Mm.
who, in my opinion, um, are toxic, and I'm not going to like name any names now. I will, but that and I can see like, but you're really toxic because your whole thing is about, as the plain white tee said, planes and trains and cars. Um, but you never acknowledge that it's almost like it's almost like you act as if you are perfect. It's almost like you act like anybody that gets you gets the best thing in the world. And I'm not saying it's totally wrong to think, somebody that gets you gets something good. But this whole idea is like there's nothing wrong with me. I'm 100% okay. I never have to work on myself. It's always you, it's always her, it's always him. That for me is a problem. So for me, a healthy thing, a healthy person, same thing, a healthy person is somebody that can say, I'm growing into my healthy masculine, or I'm growing into my healthy feminine. I do acknowledge I still have this and this and this and this, and I still acknowledge that I do have things that I have to work through.
Mm. So in clinical practice, okay, when you're assessing a personality structure that's sitting in front of you, so as a clinician, my job is to hear what you're saying, but at the same time hear what you're not saying, and at the same time hear what my clinical brain is saying, and at the same time hear what Nicholas is saying. So as a therapist, we're listening on different levels. And it's easy to get wrapped up in a person's story, right? But we want to know what's going on behind that. And so what we look for in a healthy personality structure is the ability to self-reflect. Okay, that's what you're mentioning here. So,
Mm.
so someone who's on that spectrum of pathology where the self has collapsed so much that it is only about the self, and therefore I need energy and resources to fulfill the self. It's therefore never about you. It's only really about me, is somebody who is so collapsed that they cannot reflect and therefore be accountable for their own stuff because they collapsed into themselves. They haven't differentiated. Hope the viewers can see my fists here.
Mm.
Have the ability to reflect on my own behavior. Do you understand? because I haven't been able to differentiate through my childhood experiences in a safe environment to be able to know that I'm okay to say I'm sorry because there's still love available. I'm okay to say I made a mistake because there's still love available.
That's very
People
good.
who are very broken, unfortunately, never had that safety parachute. So they only had to rely on themselves. So they are so vulnerably shit scared, excuse the language, to actually self-reflect and differentiate that they've had to collapse within themselves. And that's when we're looking at the sort of spectrum of narcissisms and all those different isms in and around personality disorders and stuff like that. So a disorder is a collapse of the self-identity. Um, and those people have learned, obviously, then to be very charming, charismatic, inflated, and, look incredibly confident. And a lot of women are attracted to that. But unfortunately, when it comes to the intimacy and the times to be vulnerable, they just don't have that capacity. But by then, the woman is unfortunately so lost in a relationship. And of course, it can happen in the other, the reciprocal as well with men and women. But yes, the ability to reflect is a very important skill that requires a lot of early childhood differentiation, ego development, self-identification, and then also obviously developing skills to be able to be aware and to love yourself enough to be able to say, hey, I'm sorry.
I once said to somebody, it was a woman, and she said to me, my husband never shares his feelings with me and he never talks to me. And I said to her, well, how did you react the last time he did it? Because because one thing that I know about a man is if a man comes to him, because it's a bit more difficult for a man to open up. So if a man comes and he opens up and your reaction is, yeah, just get over it, or why are you bothering me? Or chances of him coming back and opening up again is a bit, yeah, but I know it can also be about childhood things. And I think that whole idea is to cause people to be comfortable. I don't know if you know who Danny Morel is. Yeah, so I watched something of him recently where he interviewed his own wife, and
Mm,
he said actually that when he met his wife, she was so much in her masculine because she
mm,
had to make everything work for herself. And he said he realized that he had to be in his healthy masculine for her to get to a place where she feels safe to go back into her healthy feminine, because for a very very long time she had to be in her masculine because she had to vent for herself. And when like you said, that frame, when he realized, like, if I can become that frame, she can become this beautiful picture. And I think a lot of people do want that. I think for a lot of people, it's not that they, let's use women for example. It's not that they want to be in their masculine the whole time. It's just like, if I don't have that frame, I have to be in my masculine. I don't have a I
yeah.
I don't have another choice. So if you don't
Mm.
provide that frame, I cannot go into my feminine. If I am I right if I say that?
Yeah, you got it right. Yeah, exactly. And that is the dance, and that is the skill, is knowing any given moment what masculine energy is, so you can feel that in your partner. So what you were sharing there is that this Danny guy, he was aware of her masculinity, but also his own masculinity. He probably said her masculinity is 8 out of 10. For me to provide a safe relationship, my masculine has to be 9 out of 10.
Wow, that's good.
So I have to out masculinize her energy so that I can shift her into the feminine. What happens is most men, when they meet a woman whose masculine energy is 8 out of 10, they don't know how to deal with that. So they stay, so the other 2 out of 10 is their masculine, right? So they always stay in the feminine, because men don't have the skill to know how to out masculinize a woman. And that's a heck of a term, and that may need a bit of unpacking, but it just basically just means holding a safe space and just being very centered and focused on breaking through her defenses and her tension and stress in her body to get to the feelings and where her heart is, so that she can start to express more of how she's feeling rather than what she's thinking, and stop her doing stuff, but rather help her to be feeling herself and in her body. And a lot of guys can learn to do that through dancing. They can do that through embodiment exercises. They can be more playful. They can use their sense of humor to break her open a bit more. But a man who collapses and runs away with his tail between his legs is unfortunately, yeah, very unattractive. Yeah. So
Mhm.
It's a good point that, yeah.
Very, very good. Okay, we're going to get to the book now. Where can people, first of all, if they want to do coaching with you, if they want to do training with you, in these areas, where can they find you?
Thanks, man. Yeah, so we've got a really nice, healthy sort of Facebook page there that's just under Nicholas Neaves. I share a lot there. We can make contact there. Also, the email address of hello@drneaves.com. So that's drneaves.com. That's the practice email where we take our appointments. Otherwise, yeah, we've got quite a strong social media presence. We've got YouTube videos out as well on a lot of these subjects. And then Instagram also at Unbound Coaching. So our coaching practice is Unbound Coaching. Yeah, man, and then the letters to her is available there as well. And also just, practically we're busy, self-distributing at the moment so people can get hold of that. And the book has a lot of these topics in it. It's 82 letters just in and around how men feel and want to connect more with women. It's not confession stuff, but it's certainly vulnerability. It's bravery in and around sharing why we love protecting you, why we go quiet, why we don't always like committing, why we've cheated maybe, what we mean when we say we want God in our relationships, right? Like the healthier version. So the letters have been really received well, and men have said to me, Nick, these are wonderful blueprints on how to communicate to our partners. I haven't heard words like this before. And a lot of guys show their partners specific paragraphs out the book saying, that's how I'm feeling, that's what's going on. I just haven't known how to share it with you before, and that's been so lovely to hear. Women have received it very well too, because they're kind of like, well, this is what we want men to be saying to us, and so they felt quite touched and seen and witnessed through the letters as well. And they've had their eyes opened also in and around what could be going on for their men, where they no longer have to take their bad behavior personally. They can understand that that bad behavior was actually just maybe a defensive mechanism on how to actually relate to you, because I'm actually carrying a lot of shame. So it's not about you, it's my shame that's in this relationship, unfortunately. So yeah, the book's been a good sort of healing modality for people to read the words, so I'm excited about it.
Oh, me too. And I really think this is a book, because for me, a lot of times is like the why behind something for me is like very important. And I do believe the why behind this book, if the why behind this book is like for the single person, I want to make good decisions before I get into a relationship. The person in a relationship, I want to learn to communicate. I want to learn to feel. So I think the why behind the book, I think the reason behind the book is so amazing, and I'm so excited for the viewers to get the book and to read the book. Final question, based on something that you said that triggered me. You spoke about, I think the one word was vulnerable, and the other word was bold or courageous or something that you said. And I think a lot of times people think that's opposites. If I'm vulnerable, I'm not strong and bold and courageous. If I'm strong and bold and courageous, I cannot be vulnerable.
I'm just going to make a brave move here for my charger, and I'm going to be courageous to get the battery going so we don't lose connection. So excuse all the different angles here. Here we go.
No problem.
Right. Okay, man. So, yeah. Look, the idea behind all of that is to understand that we want to be able to be vulnerable to the point of understanding what our needs are in relationship and be able to get those met through a confident, authentic sort of way, right? So what that means is I'm not going to use covert or manipulative tactics to try and get my needs met in relationship, by force or power or control, whatever. And so when I'm standing in front of you and I really recognize I have a need for a lovely, warm hug right now, it is a brave step because I could be rejected. If a man approaches a woman and says, hey, man, I would love to make love to you, and she says, no, not right now. Why do you always just want sex? He's not going to be very motivated to, go and make that offer again. And so a strong man is a man who can be vulnerable, but he's got enough in the self-love arena, in the self-identification spaces inside himself, to recognize that if it's a no, he can still come back and try again, right? So toxic men, unfortunately, would be men who've got very, very small emotional capacities due to trauma and abuse in childhood. And so when they get rejected or they get hurt or something like that, they collapse. And then they get aggressive and defensive because you're not giving me what I need. So they come from a lot of scarcity, right? Versus the healthy version of that is, you know what? If you say no, that's okay, man. You know what? The fun bus arrives every 15 minutes, man. So it's cool. You know, like I'm sorted. And that sort of energy is a stronger energy. I hope that answers the question.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And Nicholas, thank you so much for today. We are so excited about the book. My
Thanks.
whole company, we are so excited about the book, and I'm so excited for the readers getting the book. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for helping people, and thank you for doing the work you do. We love you and we support you.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. And love right back to you, brother. Thanks, man. Thanks for a great interview. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Ciao, man. Bye.
Bye.